Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to take a trip back into vintage pens. I get my ideas and inspirations from many places, but I do watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I do appreciate what the other YouTube pen reviewers are finding and presenting. So I didn't really know about the Fifth Avenue line of Parker, but between Waski Squirrel and Grand Mia, I became familiar with it. So of course I go on eBay and I look around, and I have a soft spot for combos. So when I saw this auction, I said, interesting pen, price is good, let's bid on it, buy it, bring it home. So it showed up today, and I'm very happy with the way that it looks. It is definitely a Fifth Avenue. It has that classic two-step finial at the top, but at the bottom it has a pencil because it is a combo. It is a lever fill. I think this resin this celluloid is in very good condition, probably equal to the quality of what they would have in their top-of-the-line pens. That clip is a little bent, but that's going to be easy to fix. We take a look at the nib, and it doesn't really have any tipping material. It has a kind of bend up at the end, and it's labeled Welsh. So is there some relationship between Welsh and Fifth Avenue? We may never know. But the first thing I did when I saw about the Fifth Avenue pens is I go, do I have a Fifth Avenue in my collection? So going through shoe boxes, I saw this one, and that cap design kind of said, let me look at this one. Nothing else. It's kind of a very bizarre mishmash design. That kind of like red celluloid barrel here is very nice. But when you uncap it, you'll look at the nib and it says Fifth Avenue. So here we have a Fifth Avenue with a Welsh nib, and we have a no-name pen with a Fifth Avenue nib. So that's a very bizarre combination. So we'll probably get both of these up and running and put nib to paper and see if they're as interesting as they look. So now we're in stage 2 of restoration, rehabilitation, restoring the functional qualities of the pen. I've looked at everything. This had the original sack inside, which is kind of turned a strange light brown color. All the pieces of the sack were inside of the barrel here. They came out pretty easily. The pencil works fine, so no need to do anything about that. So I'm going to soak this, clean it up, think about whether I'm going to knock that nib and feed out because it's pretty dirty inside of there. Fix the clip, clean it up, put a sack on it, and get it ready to write. So this is how I clean out the nib and the feed. You can see already that most of the ink is gone. And this has a really good flow to it, so that has me excited. This is ammonia and soap and detergent and degreaser. So we're just going to let that do a couple more plunges and then rinse with water, and we should be good to go. Yes, we have another combo, but this one is a little different. We can call this a Tier 1 combo because it's a Sheaffer. And it's the same black and ivory design that we have on the Fifth Avenue. So this is something I discovered in my bag of combos that I didn't know I had. Somehow got thrown in there before I recognized it as a Sheaffer. The cap threading is not very good. I'll see what I can do to correct that. But when we take the cap off, we'll notice that it doesn't have a Sheaffer nib. It has a Waterman's nib. So thankfully the lead works on this pen. So while we're cleaning up the Fifth Avenue, let's clean up this one. See if we can get a sack in it and see how good that Waterman nib works in this Sheaffer pen. So I like my book. So this is one that I bought early in my pen collecting career, and I bought it at the Fountain Pen Hospital, which is where the authors are. And this is the one book that I have that actually references the Sheaffer combo that we reviewed. Here we have on page 182, pretty much the same pen that I showed you the restoration of. It's a Sheaffer combo. It has the ball on the clip, single band, that same type of ivory finish. I think the one that I restored is in pretty decent shape compared to this one. And it does appear to have a Sheaffer gold nib on it. And in the description it mentions that Sheaffer, of the major manufacturers, made more combos than the others. So I'm really happy to have one, and it's interesting to find it in the book. So I've polished up and waxed the pens, cleaned everything as well as I could, put new sacks on these sections. So one of the things that I noticed is this is about the smallest section I've seen on a pen. Yeah, I put a little bit of wood glue underneath the sack, stretched the sack over the end of the section, let it dry 24 hours, and then a coat of shellac right on that seam. And that, as I have developed over the years, I think is about as good as I'm comfortable with. I don't shellac underneath of the sack because I think that can be detrimental to the sack, and I've had my challenges trying to chip off a sack that's been shellacked on like that. So this is a number 16 sack in the 5th Avenue and a number 17 in the Sheaffer, but the Sheaffer is shorter as I measure. So the 5th Avenue cleaned up quite nicely. That's always good. And so did the Sheaffer. So we talk about Tier 1 versus Tier 3. So let's try to look at these in that vein. So the 5th Avenue has pretty much like a brass clip, probably brass trim, whereas the Sheaffer has gold filled. I was able to fix that clip fairly easily. You can see I straightened out that bend. That was just by putting a rod there and forming it over the rod until I felt it was good. I would place the Sheaffer pens somewhere in the early 30s because the ball end at the end of the clip was something they flattened out later on in the mid 30s. So one of the things that I think the celluloid in the Sheaffer still has some pearlescence in it, where maybe the 5th Avenue never had the pearlescence in it, so the quality of the celluloid's a little different. You know, this cap top and streamlined top on the Sheaffer, you know, two design elements basically. The Sheaffer has an eraser in it. It's nice how that piece unscrews. Eraser is long since being functional, but I'm not going to replace it. But when you put this in place and tighten it up, that seam pretty much disappears, which is very nice, a good indication of quality. The lever is also more substantial on the Sheaffer, more secure, whereas this is just a plain piece of stamped brass. So that's kind of how I distinguish between them. Maybe the Sheaffer had originally a gold Sheaffer nib, but now it's been replaced by a Waterman nib. This is my other 5th Avenue pen that I was looking at, and this has also just been cleaned up and polished. And again, it's just a brass metal accoutrements, you know, kind of a lighter color brass here on the lever. The celluloid resin in the barrel came out very nice. It's a very interesting red that I haven't seen before. The other thing that's nice about this is you have some design elements with some red still left in those grooves. There are facets at the end of the cap and at the end of the barrel. It's a good design element. And the other thing that's nice is how they tapered this down so there's no real step up. So when the cap is in place, it works well. And this thing is pretty much mint. The sack works fine, so it's ready to go. And the other thing we want to look at, even though these nibs are marked differently, one says 5th Avenue, which is the one from the red pen, and the other one just says Welsh on it. But they're both just plain stamped steel nibs with a little bit of a forming there to emulate some type of tipping material. I had these on the Banker combo pen, and certainly not a nib that I would run home to use, but we're going to give them a shot and see how they worked in these pens. So the next thing is to assemble them, ink them up, and put nib to paper. One of the challenges with vintage pens is the cap doesn't thread onto the barrel. This just catches. I mean, it's an eighth of a turn. It's almost nothing. And with the section out, sometimes it's the section that interferes with that, but those threads look okay there on the barrel. And if we look inside the cap, those threads are also, I mean, there's nothing obvious from my perspective. And there's the cap liner, which is also a nice feature, something that we'll take a look and see if the Tier 3 pen has a cap liner. Here's the Fifth Avenue pen, and as we look inside the cap, there doesn't appear to be a cap liner. Yeah, you can put that all the way down there and you can see the light through the celluloid. The pens are inked up, and they've all been inked up with this ink. It's an ink I haven't used much before. I figured nice, benign, good properties ink to put in these 3 pens and see how they work with the ink. One look at them restored, and I think they came out pretty good. I'm quite pleased with at least the visuals of the pens. Let's start with the Franken pen, which has the Waterman nib in it. This pen easily fits in the hand unposted, but streamline, it posts nice, and it's a place to put the cap, and you feel the cap, but it's a fairly light pen, so it's not an issue one way or the other, so you can either post or not post as you choose. I think you can hear it's a little bit scratchy. You know, with no pressure, it writes consistently, and that's really like an extra fine line, if not even finer. But with a little pressure, you can get some decent flex out of it. And I did drag the feed there. You know, writing with a flex nib does take practice. Not something you just pick up a pen, at least for me, and write with it that way. So overall, I'm happy with this pen. I think I would do some adjustment and smoothing on the nib, but I wanted to show these pens writing without any adjustments. Now we're going to go with the Fifth Avenue pen next. And this also is a little short in the hand without posting, so for those of you with slightly larger hands, posting would probably be preferred. And it doesn't change the balance or weight or feel of how it writes. I mean, this is another extra fine nib in my view. And you do get some feedback, which to me is typical of a steel extra fine nib that's of a lower quality. But it does write consistently. Yeah, I don't spell consistently, but you know, that's the way it is. This is not a nib that is dear to me. Not a nib that I would enjoy using, but for some people that like extra fine nibs, this would certainly work for them. And I wanted to note that The Fifth Avenue on this is all in caps. The Fifth Avenue written on the combo is lowercase Fifth and uppercase Avenue. I don't know enough and I don't have enough information to understand the different ways of spelling Fifth Avenue and whether they were indicative of a pen made by Parker, a subsidiary of Parker, or just a pen calling itself Fifth Avenue. So we're back with the last writer, which is the pen that started this whole exercise, is the Fifth Avenue pen. And like the Sheaffer, it fits fine in the hand unposted. It does post fine and even more deeply than the Sheaffer did, and again, no balance change. I think it actually feels better with the pen posted, so we'll write that way. I think you can hear this is super smooth. Again, apologize about the spelling. You know, over the camera, the brain gets kind of a challenge. I mean, this nib just very much impresses me. It's a little stubby, so the horizontal lines are definitely finer than the vertical, and you know, that's with no pressure, that's with pressure, no pressure. So I'm very much impressed with this nib, considering that it doesn't look like anything, but it writes extremely well, and it lays down a nice wet patch of ink. You know, kind of similar to the Waterman number 2 would lay down, but certainly much nicer, to me, writing experience than the other Fifth Avenue nib, which was really an extra fine, but of a similar steel nib design. So this is the winner out of the batch from my perspective. Yeah, the Sheaffer is nice, but you know, I'm going to empty all three of these after the video. I don't think I'm going to keep them inked up for daily use, but I certainly do enjoy exploring these pens and seeing what they're like. And if anybody knows why this has Welsh on it and the other one has Fifth Avenue and this has Fifth Avenue on the cap, but it's bizarre. But this is tier 3, and this is one of the things that you'll find is a lot of inconsistencies. A lot of people made pens, hundreds of people made pens in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and some of them were in business for a few years, and some of them were in business for more than that. But at the end of the day, they may have changed their name, changed their pens. They may have done pens for other people and put different branding on it. So it's an interesting world, and it's very difficult to get a lot of information. But hopefully you've enjoyed this look at these 3 pens. So thank you for watching. We've reached the end of this video, but more to come, and may you have many great, exceptional, pleasurable writing experiences, and put some ink on paper and see what it looks like. So until the next video, bye for now. And this is just really an impressive nib, considering I had very low expectations.